All right, and welcome to the Balance. It's Saturday Balance drop. We've got one drop today. Now we got a couple more coming tomorrow and on Monday. Remember, we did our draft special. We've got part two of that where we're going to put the grades together. Myself and Adam Jividen, Ed Kratz, beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles and SI.com, our official NFL contributor. So that's to come. More to come, and a lot of exciting stuff going on with the draft. And of course, the Colts, our team, the Indianapolis Colts, drafted in the second round thanks to Sauce Gardner, but that's a topic for another day. Today is Dega, baby. It is Dega, a rainy, soggy day, the way I understand it, down in Alabama at Talladega. Steve Wilson was going to be down in Dega, but, hey, sometimes things don't work out as planned. So he's at home in Virginia, but he is going to join us here. And we're going to break down last week's action with the O'Reilly Cup Series and NASCAR Series out in Kansas. And then this week, we're breaking down Talladega. Strap in, hold on tight, because it's Talladega week, baby. And I've learned with Steve not to make the Talladega night reference jokes that I always do. So I won't do that. But we're going to team up with Speedway Digest and editor-in-chief Steve Wilson to break down all the action of the AG Pro 300 in the NASCAR O'Reilly Parts Series, formerly known as the Xfinity Series, and get you ready for one of the wildest rides in racing at Talladega. From lap chaos to drafting alliances, we're going to dive right into it. Steve, how are you? I'm sorry you couldn't make it down to Talladega. I know that's a must stop for you every year, but hey, we're glad that you were able to catch up with us.
Yeah, a little bit of flight problems, but we'll figure those out.
We'll figure it out. Well, hopefully they give you credit for another flight for another time. Steve, let's look back at Kansas last week. It was really kind of a good week. I like Kansas track, and it kind of helps us get a look into where we're at, like the current state of the union when it comes to the NASCAR O'Reilly Cup Series and the NASCAR Series. Of course, last week they were at Kansas in the O'Reilly Parts Series. Man, I got to figure out how to get that to roll off my tongue, Steve. But Tyler Gray of Joe Gibbs Racing earned his second career series win. And I think there was a lot of strategy there. So talk with us on a recap of Taylor Gray on the NASCAR O'Reilly Parts Series out in Kansas, the Kansas Lottery 300, I believe it was last week.
Yeah, it was for him to be able to come back and Joe Gibbs Racing as a whole this season. You've kind of seen this, and you continue to see this with both, in the Cup Series and Ty Gibbs and Denny Hamlin from their side, but their Xfinity, or I'm sorry, I'm putting another dollar in the jar for that. Their no apps teams are, still continuing to be some of the best out there week in and week out. Taylor Gray, who came and has been a part of the Truck Series for quite some time, along with his brother. You had Brett Cruz from JGR finishing in the fifth spot also. So there was a couple of them up there running really well. William Byron, his return to the series, once again in that number 88 after such a disastrous weekend in Bristol the week before, finishing at least sixth in the No App Series. So, you had some names and mixing some of that stuff up there. Sheldon Creed and Justin Allgaier, Justin Love. And those are guys that we just continue that once again, week in, week out. They're the ones we're talking about. They're the ones that are going to be up there. That'll be in this 10 race chase later on this year. And, Taylor Gray is seeming to make his name known into this too.
Well, and I think in the O'Reilly Parts race last week, not only was it Tyler Gray the winner on the track, his team was really the key strategy there. Crew chief Jason Ratcliffe, I believe, called him called him to the pit early during the final green flag, lap 143, allowing him to cycle back into the lead. So he won in the pit box, and what a good strategy that was from Jason Ratcliffe. Thoughts?
Yeah, that was a different strategy that they were on, and they ran that thing all the way until the very end. Trying to tip the scales in their favor, and in a lot of ways, you're trying to do that and hoping to avoid a caution, which it none came out, so that boded well in their favor to be able to work that strategy, work not only tire conservation, but the fuel, strategy that allowed them on that final run, but also, being there, being early, being able to get past some of the leaders in using that different strategy on pit road, which we've kind of seen more and more passing happening within pit road. The race off pit road, these off strategies, try and split stages and things like that. And that seems to be the key where a lot of spots are now being made up versus on the racetrack.
And you know what? Let's not forget Sheldon Krieg, and we're going to be keeping a close eye on him today out in Talladega if they get the race in because of the race or in the morning. But it was only by 0.718 seconds that Gray beat out Sheldon Krieg. So Sheldon Krieg, he is on a mission. That was a really close race. Thoughts about Sheldon Krieg and how he ran the race in Kansas last week?
Yeah, that Haas factory team, since they've switched over to Chevrolet, and there's been a lot of changes as far as that is concerned. They have seemed to be up there running up front. Both him, his teammate, the two of them. Sheldon Creed had a pretty big victory a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta, and Creed and Austin Hill, those two at RCR never got along. And in fact, in one of their last races, they nearly fought on pit road as teammates at Martinsville. But, he was able to go to victory lane a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta. Austin Hill came over and congratulated them. It seemed like they had put some of that behind them. But this Chevrolet transition has given him that opportunity to be up there and fighting in and week out, along with his teammate Sam Mayer.
You got to look at some honorable mention names. Brandon Jones dominated early, winning both stages 1 and 2, but that pass through penalty for a pit road tire violation, really cost him the win. And then of course Justin Allgaier, he finished third, maintained a massive 131-point lead, and it maintains a massive 103.1 lead in the championship standing. So certainly honorable mentions to Brandon Jones and Justin Allgaier.
Brandon Jones always seems to be the one that he has the worst luck when it comes to some of this. Either he's really good or there's
He's either
always
really
something
good or
like
really
that.
bad, right?
Yeah, there never seems to be a whole lot of middle ground when it comes to him some days. He's either running really well and gets hung out in somebody else's incident, or he's running really well and wins the race. There's just kind of really no middle ground a lot of time with him.
So let's talk a little bit about the NASCAR Cup Series recap at Kansas 400. Of course, Tyler Reddick, again, took the checkered flag, marking his first win of the 2026 season at Kansas, I believe, because Tyler's won more than
5 times
one.
he won. This
Five
is
times.
fifth time this
That's what
season.
I meant to say, fifth times. Okay. But the race featured some intense multi-lane racing, and that's what's cool about Kansas. And then you also got to look at some honorable mentions there with Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin were strong throughout, but just could not hold off Tyler Reddick's late race speed. I mean, and they're talking about on the national broadcast every time MJ shows up, he wins. So maybe he'll show up more often, but. Yeah, what another impressive win by Tyler Reddick.
Yeah, 5 times already this season, including the very first three of the season and the point season from Daytona to Coda. And at some points in the race, he was not even a factor in the. Excuse me, he was not even a factor into this. Early going, he was the pole sitter. He won the pole for the race out there. Lost it pretty quickly out there, and then for a lot of time at the race, it was really Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and others. Bubba Wallace and others that we saw up there really being the ones that were racing. And the two that really it came down to, it looked like it was going to be Denny Hamlin and a Kyle Larson until, that late race overtime deal that really put them in a box. And everybody that had been out there, I think, had that not come out, Tyler Reddick would not have been the winner in this deal. It would have been somebody else. But alas to that, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Chase Briscoe, they all tried to battle up there, and somehow Tyler Reddick made his way around them.
Well, today we're out in Talladega, as we mentioned. The Ag Pro 300 is scheduled to start at 4 o'clock, but as you have mentioned and that we have talked about offline, weather may be an issue. I know they'll try to get that track dry and get it done. I know they cancel qualifying for the Cup Series. So I don't know. I was looking at Bob's tweet X today, and he thought that um, um, the ARCA race might be able to be ran, but I know that they were drying the tracks. Where are we currently standing there at Talladega at current real time situation?
Well, as of right now, the ARCA race is just about to roll off. So I know that rain is on the way. Rain will be there pretty quickly within the next hour or less, and then that's supposed to be through the entire afternoon, all the way up until past the 4 o'clock race time. So I'm skeptical if this ARCA race is able to run to conclusion. They've got they've got scheduled cautions and things like that they got for controlled cautions and things like that. So that's going to extend the timeline of that race. I'm just I'm pretty skeptical on the point of whether they make this to conclusion.
Well, does ARCA have the same rule? If you go halfway, it becomes official. If you have to call the race.
Yeah, they have a procedure for that. Yes, that if they can get it halfway, or there's uh you know you know that they can get to that point of the race, then they'll call the race as an official race. But again, that's 38 or so laps that they got to get in today
Yeah.
to get to that point.
Well, we'll be keeping an eye on it as well as the O'Reilly Series Ag Pro 300. If it doesn't run tonight, it's my understanding it'll run in the morning. But it is the Dash for Cash Showdown. $100,000 bonus is on the line for the highest finisher among 4 eligible drivers: Tyler Gray, Sheldon Creek, Justin Allgaier, and Jesse Love. All Chevys, I believe. And out of the last 12 races at Talladega, Chevy has won 10, I believe, races, or 11 races out of the last 12 races. So we're keeping our eye on Chevy today. But Tyler Gray, Sheldon Creed, which obviously here we're looking at last week and what was able to happen last week with Sheldon Creed and how fast he was going. We always look at Justin Allgaier and Jesse Love. Good top 4 drivers here for that $100,000 bonus Dash for Cash. What are your thoughts on that?
Just when Justin Allgaier won this thing week or so, the week prior to last week. Somebody made this was at Bristol. Somebody made a mention to him that since this program had started, he had won something like $700,000 or $800,000 in $100,000 cash for dash bonuses. So at this point, he is pretty much the king of the $100,000 dash for cash bonuses in the No App series for this program. He's collected a lot of wins and a lot of money that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Another team to be looking at today is RCR, Richard Childress Racing. Has won the pole in Talladega 8 consecutive O'Reilly Series races. Jesse Love kept that streak alive and starts first today. I've kind of got a superstition of betting for the winner on the pole at Talladega. It's only happened 3 times that a pole winner has won the race, because Talladega is one of those races where the ticket holders and people go to Talladega for the party, but also for the chaos they know they're going to see in the track. That's how they sell tickets. We know it's going to happen. We don't know when or if. We just know it is going to happen. And so that pole winner is, it's hard for them to avoid that chaos. But we'll see. We'll see how that happens. What are your thoughts on RCR and their dynasty there at Talladega?
Yeah, they've got something figured out when it comes to the Daytonas, the Talladegas, and even the Atlantas now between RCR and Jessica Love and Austin Hill. They've seemed to figure these tracks out pretty good, and I think this goes back a long way into their history that they seem to be a lot of dominant factor on these racetracks.
Well, we'll certainly see how they play out today as well. And again, we go back to Justin Allgaier. He's just coming in with perfection. He's the only driver to earn stage points in every single race so far in 2026. He enters the points at the points leader with a massive 131 point cushion. Justin Allgaier in today's race. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think as we were just talking, where he's the king of the $100,000 bonuses. If somebody else doesn't grab it from the winning position, I think he's going to be once again. We're going to continue to look at him to throw another $100,000 into his pocketbook for his just dominating factor of this program as a whole. And JRM, they've got 5 cars out there that they can work together, work these drafts, and be able to work against the smaller teams like RCR. But really, Jesse Love and Austin Hill, they've also figured out how to block these teams out there. They are not afraid to go out there and block huge runs, that are inches away from chaos. So even though he's got a bunch of teammates around him, they've got to find ways to get around the Austin Hills and the Jesse Loves of the world too.
Well, my wife, we were talking about when we were making the bets this morning about Justin Allgaier, and I was just like, I don't know. So we went ahead and threw him in to finish in the top five. So we'll see what Justin Allgaier. What about Austin Hill's Austin Hill and a possible hat trick. Austin Hill has won the last two O'Reilly Series at Talladega and is the heavy favorite to make three in a row. Hat trick for Austin Hill today. What do you think? Or tomorrow morning, depending on how we go with the weather.
I mean, you look at what he's done. You look at what he's done at both Talladega. I mean, sorry, at Daytona and Atlanta. He is the king of those two tracks, and he seems to be the king of a lot of these super speedway style racing out there. And he's gone back to back wins, back to back to back at Atlanta and Daytona, and he's went to victory lane multiple times there in Talladega. He is really one of the kings. Like I said, that he is not afraid to go out there and block some of these massive runs out there that are inches away from chaos in a lot of ways. He has found a way to use that draft in his favor. He is like the old Dale Earnhardt and Junior Johnson. He somehow can see the wind, he can see the draft, and he is able to use that to his advantage.
Well, let's talk about the favorites. I know that we have on our little DraftKings bet circle today. We have all four of the favorite drivers: Austin Hill, Jesse Love, Justin Allgaier, and Sheldon Creed, to do somewhere between win top three and top five. So, what are your thoughts? Who you think is going to be on the $5 DraftKings pick for the O'Reilly Cup Series race today or in the morning?
Oh Lord, I don't know. It's hard to bet against both Austin Hill and Jesse Love. I would say I would put $5 on Austin Hill to get me.
All right, well, let's kind of move on to phase two, if you will. Let's talk about the Cup Series. I also want to talk about a couple storylines. A massive move by NASCAR. They just named Steve O'Donnell as its first non-France family CEO. What are your thoughts on that?
Steve O'Donnell has been in this industry for a long time. He's respected by a lot of people. He's worked his way up. He came from the baseball world, so he's not
Yeah.
somebody that was born and bred into motorsports. He came from the stick and ball sports that, for a long time, and NASCAR said that they are not stick and ball sports, and that they did not traditionally hire anybody from those stick and ball sports, but he's been able to work himself through racing operations where a lot of these moves are being made. Um, and then let's not also forget that Ben Kennedy, who is a France family member, they they have moved him up into the COO position. So
Right.
Steve O'Donnell is the intermediary between another, one France and another France taking over a CEO. Eventually, the Steve O'Donnell will move into some kind of board position, and Ben Kennedy, who is Lisa France Kennedy's son, will take over as the controlling aspect of NASCAR and as a Prince family member once again. So there's a lot of moves being made on that front. Ben has Ben has been in every position that you can think of when it comes to this sport. He is driven in this sport. He has marketing experience in this sport. He has hands-on knowledge of this sport from the ground up because he's born and bred into this. And there's a lot of people that respect him also for, being able to work himself through the sport. And I know that's, we can fight the battle of nepotism or whatever you want to say all day long. But the point is that, Ben didn't just get many things handed to him. He's
Hmm.
had to work these positions, and sometimes many years that he's had to work positions before he moves up. So I think it's a good aspect for the sport. We saw that Steve Phelps left in, the early part of this year. Jim France is now leaving, so that means that there's change coming to this sport, and we may see more of that coming in the future.
There's a new sheriff in town. Okay, so they NASCAR took a look at some fuel strategy, and they kind of did a fuel strategy fix. They shortened the first two stages for Sunday to stop drivers from fuel saving in a single file line, aiming to force 2-3 wide action earlier, which creates chaos, which we love at Talladega. What are your thoughts about that strategy?
I'm not necessarily sure that this will fix the problem out there. They've got mathematicians and physics people and PhDs and
People
people
way
out there
smarter
that's
than me.
right, exactly, people that are way smarter than I will ever be in 10 lifetimes. And yeah, there are people out there that have probably been working and crunching the numbers and using everything in their ability to figure out just exactly what they have to do, how far they have to drive down the lap times out there. And one of the aspects that they're trying to control out there is like you said, they're trying to control some of that fuel saving strategy out there, where teams were intentionally 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds off a lap time running, you know out there in a big wide pack single file train, not much passing. And fans come to these tracks because they want to see the 3, 4, sometimes 5 wide racing, the chaos that ensues, the big blocks, and all the things that make Talladega and Daytona what they are as a super speedway. And I just don't see this necessarily as being the change that fixes that, because all these mathematicians and all these PhDs and all these engineers that they have on these teams will just figure it out. They probably already figured it out
Yeah.
on what exactly they have to do. So I think it remains to be seen whether it really is a fix or not. My perception to this is, and this is the way I look at it, I don't think the strategy here is necessarily using the stages as a way to change the racing out there. NASCAR already has a rule within the rule book that says you should be running at 100% of your ability. And I think that there's ways that you can use that rule against the teams that say, we know that you can run 7 seconds faster or 5 seconds faster, and they do this week in and week out, where they tell teams they need to speed up. They need to be on the pace. They need to do this. They need to do that. I think you start pulling drivers off the track and you send them down the pit road, or you park them for a lap on pit road for
Hmm.
not racing at 100% of their ability. I think you'll end that program pretty quickly of these drivers going out there and trying to run 5, 6, 7 seconds off the lead.
Oh, absolutely. You park him on pit road. That's going to hit him in the wall. It's going to hit him in the points. That's going to solve a problem really, really quickly. Let's move into a preview of tomorrow's race. Weather should not be an issue. Tyler Reddick, though, he's won, as we mentioned earlier, has won 5 out of 9 races this season and is looking to sweep the first 3 super speedway races of 2026. Let's start with him. What are your thoughts on Tyler Reddick going into Dega tomorrow?
I don't know. That 23XI team of Tyler Reddick this year has figured something out, and they figured it out pretty quickly. I don't think there's much to really be said. Denny Hamlin as an owner or driver has been in the media center as part of these winning conferences 6 times this year. Once as a winner himself, and 5 times over there, with Tyler Reddick going to victory lane too. So I think I don't know what else to say about him. I think he's a perennial favorite right now.
Well, let's kind of go through some of these teams kind of at rapid fire and kind of talk through. Of course, we talk about Tyler Reddick, of course, a very historic one. He's on the verge of just being one of the greatest racers of all time. This is just going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. Since 2022, Steve, Talladega has not seen a repeat winner. This anyone can win. Nature makes veterans like Brad Kolosky, Joey Logano, who's got 3 wins. Brad Kolosky was 6. Dangerous, even as they chase their first wins of 2026. What are your thoughts about that parity pattern, if you will?
I think RFK, you look at what they've done in the last year or so and how they have gone from a team that we didn't really talk about a whole lot. And Brad Keselowski coming in there and re-energizing that team and making organizational changes over there that, Jack Roush is very much still involved into this. He is still very much in control, but he has seemed to hand some of these operational factors over to Brad Keselowski, which has allowed that team to come back into prominence like they were in the late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s with their multi-car dominance in the Cup Series. Brad has been very close. He was close last week in Kansas. He was fast in Kansas as one of as the fastest RFK car, finishing up there, I think 6 or something like that. Um, he continues to show on these super speedways that he can be a factor in these. He's won at Talladega in a car that was never meant to ever go to victory lane, and I laugh about that because it just shows that anybody can win at Talladega, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in a car like a Hendrick Motorsports car or JGR car or RCR car. It can be somebody that we just don't even know of because it's not only this just a little bit of luck, it's a little bit of speed and it's a little bit of thoughts and prayers that hanging on a wing that you can go to victory lane out there if you can dash some of these big wrecks out there. And Brad Keselowski being able to do that in a car, but like I said, that was never meant to win, just shows how you can take a team that has lost a lot of prominence in a lot of ways and has not really been somebody we talk about week in and week out, to reorganizing and re-energizing that team to a factor to where they are a factor now. Ryan Preece is a factor now. Chris Buescher is a factor week in and week out, and they seem to be getting closer and closer, inching up to that next win in the series.
Well, Talladega, as we have said many times, super speedway. Drafting is very, very important in this particular race. You've got the manufacturer Chevy, which what we talked about, who's really dominated there at Talladega. Of course, a Toyota and Ford. Pit strategy is going to be huge at Dega. Do you think that's a big deciding factor of what happens at the end of the day tomorrow?
I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the biggest part of strategy. Yes, you're going to want to use that pitch strategy to get in front of some of these cars and hoping that I don't miss the big one. Mistakes can put you in the middle of the pack, back of the pack, and that really intensifies. You're not only the racing back there, but it intensifies your immediacy to get out of that style of racing and miss some of these big ones. So yeah, a mistake, even just a half a second on pit road, can really be the difference of being up there in that top lead pack or being back there in the hornet's nest.
So does it? Maybe it doesn't matter, but I would think that a lot of experience at these fast racetracks like Talladega is huge, especially when it comes to zigging and zagging. So, how does experience come into play, or does it even come into play? Because chaos roots chaos, and we know there's going to be chaos tomorrow.
Well, I think chaos breeds chaos in a lot of ways, and no matter how experienced you are, we've seen some of the most experienced drivers in the sport be tied up in these instances at places like Talladega and Daytona, time and time and time again. And that comes down to a factor of you've got a lot of racers out there that are not only inexperienced, but you've got racers out there that are willing to do things that others may not be willing to do, and because of that experience, because they've seen that it doesn't work. But you've got young drivers out there that are craving victories, that are craving their first wins, craving to, um, you know, show their sponsors and partners and their team owners that, they can go out there and do things that are meant to win races. And sometimes no matter how experienced you are, you can't factor in what 39 other cars are making decisions on within just fractions of a second.
We've been talking with Steve Wilson, editor-in-chief of Speedway Digest, our official NASCAR contributor. Steve, going to put you on just a rapid fire here, just a couple bold predictions, and then we'll wrap it up and put a bowl in it. Let's start with the biggest wreck prediction. Do you think it happens late, like right before the checker flag gets us into overtime and the restart causes it massive? Do you think a restart in the middle? Where do you think this big one's going to come?
I think I think it would be later in the race. I don't think that early on you're going to see too many, unless NASCAR pushes the issue on this whole fuel savings thing, like I
Hmm.
kind of mentioned using the
Yeah.
rule book. I see the first at least stage or maybe first two stages is going to be rather calm unless we're getting down to those last couple of seconds or whatever in the end of a stage where has been traditionally somewhere that we've seen some chaos in that. But I think the biggest one comes towards the end.
Stage winners. Do you think we'll see the multiple stage winners tomorrow, or a steady wins the race kind of thing? Stage winners.
I think you see multiple stage winners.
All right. Couple bold predictions here. Dark horses for tomorrow. If you wish to pick someone out there to be a dark horse to get into the top five, we'll say, who would that be?
Mm. Jane Smith.
Zane Smith.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna put him down as a dark horse for you. Now, who's your pick? Your $5 lock it in pick. Who is it?
Well, I know it's not going to be Kyle Larson. He's not been very good at some of these super speedways. Um, Man, Brad Keselow's going to start sixth. Look, I don't. Shoot, Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin is
Oh,
very good
Denny.
at these tracks. Yeah, so let's go with him.
All right, Denny, $5 DraftKings picks locked in. Steve Wilson, editor-in-chief of Speedway Digest. And, we're just right around the corner from the Indianapolis 500. We're going to be talking with Tony Donahue tomorrow or Monday about that. And, of course, open practice. But we're excited about being down at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to help cover for you guys. And so it's going to be an exciting time as well. So there's what you can do, Steve. You can use your makeup points from Delta to fly on in here to Indianapolis next month. What do you think about that?
One day, one day.
One day, we'll make it happen. Steve Wilson, editor in chief of Speedway Digest. Any final words of wisdom, sir?
Chaos. You're gonna have to miss it all day long in the next 2 days, and we're gonna have to miss some raindrops.
Yeah, we're going to have to zig and zag on the raindrops. Steve, we appreciate you coming on, and we'll follow this. Hopefully, we do get a race in today. Maybe Mother Nature will shine down on us. If not, get your coffee ready, espresso ready, whatever. Your bagels ready for some early morning NASCAR racing, much like when football starts out in Europe or something.
Okay.
Hey, where can people find your work in Masterpieces, sir?
You can follow us at Speedway Digest on X, Facebook.com/Speedway Digest, and SpeedwayDigest.com.
All right, Steve, we appreciate you. Have a good week, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.